And he said, well, yeah, he's the most successful man I know. And I said, well, now, we kind of got to look at success and see what it is. I said, I'd like for you to tell me what you consider success to be. And we talked, and he did not come out with them in the same order that we've listed them on numbers of occasions. But the bottom line is, when we finally got through, he agreed that anybody who was happy and healthy and at least reasonably prosperous and secure, who had friends, peace of mind, good family relationships, and hoped that the future was going to be better, was a successful man. And I said, well, now let's do something that most people never do, including those of you listening to this tape. And that is, let's evaluate where we are in pursuit of what we want as versus where we think we might be. And I said to the young man, for example, we know that in any audience, if I divide the audience exactly half in two, and they're all salespeople, same experience, same territories, selling the same product, same abilities, but one keeps precise records on the people they call on, what happened, and how they can improve on the next one, will sell dramatically more than the other one will. And I said, on weight loss, if you take people, those who keep exact records on what they eat, I mean, every bite, will lose weight faster, and they will keep it off longer than will those who say, well, I don't really eat that much. You know, it depends on what they call much. Most people on that are in denial, and as you know, denial is just a river in Egypt, as far as, a lot of people are concerned. So I said, let's talk about your boss, and let's see how he measures up with your picture of success. I said, first of all, how happy is your boss? And he said, well, I don't really think he's happy. And I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, well, first of all, I almost never see him smile. I don't think I've heard him laugh a half a dozen times. And on top of that, he's got ulcers. I said, well, let me tell you something. Based on what you just told me, we got to give him a failing grade on the happiness part there. And on the health, if he's got ulcers, that raises a failure there at this particular moment. And I said, you get ulcers not because of what you eat, but because of what's eating you. And so that means he doesn't have peace of mind. I said, now I've asked you one question, and 3 of the 8 things that you consider to be success, he doesn't have. I said, tell me about how prosperous is he? He said, oh man, he said, he is rolling in the dough. And he's making more all the time. And I said, well, okay. On the prosperity bit then, we will give him a big old plus. Now, let me ask you, how secure is your boss? Now understand, he's thinking mostly financial security. And he said, well, he's as secure as money can make him. And I said, well, now, we had an ex-governor worth over $100 million, and he went bankrupt. How does your boss compare to him? He said, oh, he doesn't have that much money. I said, well, we had an industrialist in this area worth over $500 million. He went bankrupt, so he couldn't compare with him, could he? And he said, no. So I said, well, the financial security, would it be fair to say that as far as that's concerned, there is a legitimate question? He said, yeah, things happen. Actually, only 19 of the top 100 corporations in America in 1900 are still in business today. So we do know that things change there. I said, tell me, how many friends does your boss have? He thought of me and said, I don't think he's got any. He said, actually, I'm not his friend. I just admire him a lot. To tell you the truth, the guy is somewhat of a jerk. I said, okay, then we'll give him a failing grade on that one. I said, tell me about his family relationships. And he said, well, his wife's divorcing him. So I said, well, we kind of got to give him a big old X on that one. I said, tell me about his hope for the future. He said, well, now, he thinks he's got a great future, but I'm beginning to think that, maybe he doesn't after all. I said, well, in other words, we could put an honest question mark on the hope part. He said, yeah, I think we could. And I said, well, now let's take a little inventory of the 8 things you consider to be success, he gets a plus on 1, he gets a minus on 5, and a maybe on 2 of them. Now, I said, let me ask you a question. Based on this actual, factual exploration of your admiration for the most successful man you know, would you swap places with him? The young man sat there kind of stunned for quite a few seconds. Then slowly he stood up. He extended his hand, indicating the interview was over. Now, as you listen to this tape, let me ask you a question. Would you exchange everything you hold dear to have more bucks in the bank? I dare say that nobody who ever listened to this would be willing to do that. And the good news is you don't have to. As stated in previous recordings, if you go for quality of life first, if you plan the other things, then they're far more likely to happen as well. And the better balanced you are, ultimately, the more income you're going to have. Now, I want to emphasize a point. Life cannot always be in perfect balance every day and every week. But when we keep our records and our inventory, and I do that in the goal-setting section of these presentations very, very clearly, then if we keep those records, then when we get completely out of balance, if we keep saying, well, next week I'll do better, next week I'll do better, next week I'll do better, well, then that's called to your attention. And you say, hey, this week is the next week I was talking about last week. You see, tomorrow really does come, and we need to think about that. Now, if you're going to achieve all the things we want, you got to see yourself in that category. The picture you have of yourself is so enormously important. You cannot be one kind of person and another kind of performer. You got to have a picture of yourself, and you cannot, as Dr. Joyce Brother said, consistently perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. For 24 years of my adult life, by choice, I weighed well over 200 pounds. Now, I say by choice, you see, because I've never accidentally eaten anything. Always a choice. Now, if I choose to eat too much, then I have chosen to weigh too much. Over those years, I tried every kind of diet known to man. I tried the 30-day diet, lost a month. I tried dieting religiously. I quit eating in church. I can tell you this about dieting. You need to stay away from cottage cheese. A lot of people don't know it, but that's the most fattening food in existence. Now, I have no scientific evidence to validate that, but I've noticed in world travel that don't nothing but fat folks eat the stuff, so you draw your own conclusion. As far as I'm concerned, that's true. One thing that was positive I did discover is that my body retains ice cream. So, I knew that I had to do something. Well, 23 years ago, I got on a sensible eating and exercise program. Up until then, my idea of exercise simply was to fill the tub, take a bath, pull the plug, and fight the current. That was it. Now, that's not really that much of an exercise program. Now, the reality is, eating too much wasn't my problem. See, I had a picture of myself. I'm a fat boy. I'm a fat man. When my youngest daughter, who will be 40 on August 26th, was a little girl, I taught her, when she was 18 months old, to call me fat boy. Now, she didn't know what she was doing. She would laugh because I would laugh on the outside. But on the inside, it was an entirely different matter. See, I knew I was a fat boy, and it hurt. I could look in the mirror, and I could tell. I had a picture of me laying out on the diving board of the swimming pool. At least part of me was on the diving board. I could tell. I saw myself as a fat boy. And as long as I saw myself as a fat boy, it didn't make any difference how much weight I lost. It's coming right back. 100% of the time, it will come back. Until the picture changes, you've got to see yourself where you want to be. One of the most amazing and dramatic stories that I've ever heard is the story of Victor Serebriakov, unless it's succeeded by the young man Steve Walker I just talked about. I met Steve again a couple of years ago at one of the seminars, and he gave me this picture. He says, "Thank you for helping to make this possible." And it's a picture. His family is well together. They've added a member of the family. Now, that's what I call real growth. The best way is the right way, folks. He got an entirely different job. He's making more money than he was making when he was killing himself, working himself to death. Victor Serebriakov, age 16, his teacher said to him, "You're a dunce, Victor. You're never going to finish school. Why don't you drop out and get a job? At least be able to support yourself." Well, he dropped out of school, and for nearly 16 years, he was an itinerant. He went everywhere, did everything, served in the army and a host of other things. But every morning, Victor would get up, he'd look in the mirror, and he would shave the dunce that looked back at him. He would dress that dunce. He would take that dunce to work. He would think as a dunce. He would perform as a dunce, and he would receive a dunce's wages. Age 31, for whatever reason, they did a psychological evaluation on him. And the results came back, and with tremendous excitement, they went to Victor and said, "Victor, I don't know whoever told you you're a dunce, and I don't know why you think you are, because the scientific evidence is compulsive. There is zero doubt that we are in error. You, sir, are not a dunce. You have an IQ of 161. You, sir, are a genius." Now, they didn't